Greetings, Vault Hunters, and welcome to Echoes from the Borderlands. This podcast is going to explore the iconic Borderlands franchise through conversations with the writers, devs, artists, and others who are responsible for its creation and its success. I'm your host, Joel Watson, and today we are talking about the game that managed to fit 17 million weapons onto an Xbox 360 disc. And it's the one that started it all, the original Borderlands. I'm joined by co-founder of Gearbox Software and founder of Gearbox Entertainment Company, Randy Pitchford, and Borderlands writer and creative director, Mikey Newman. Welcome.
Hello.
Hey!
Borderlands is a 2009 sci-fi RPG first-person shooter. Released on October 20th, 2009. By December 2009, it had sold over 2 million copies. By February of the following year, 3 million. By August of 2011, 4.5 million. And today the franchise has sold over 80 million copies of Borderlands games. It's got a bold, unique art style, an expansive platform-spanning storytelling, and it's established the looter-shooter genre as a gaming mainstay. But let's start before the beginning. The origins of Borderlands. Randy, what was the state of Gearbox before Borderlands development began? What were your successes? What was the studio known for?
Well, we'd been doing some work for hire stuff with some pretty big franchises back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And we had just launched an original game called Brothers in Arms, which Mikey and I also worked on together. I directed it and Mikey wrote it. Mm-hmm. And that was amazing. And it was a big hit. And I just kept reinvesting. So the plan after Brothers in Arms was, okay, let's do more Brothers in Arms, but let's also create some new things. So I put a couple of boats in the water. One boat was going to be going back to those roots of working on properties that other people owned, doing work for hire kind of work. And the other was, let's do something crazy, wild, and original. Brothers in Arms was awesome, but we kind of borrowed style and like themes, and I don't want to say story, because obviously the story was original, but the backdrop was borrowed. We didn't really invent anything.
You didn't invent World War II.
That's correct.
Sure.
We built.
We tried.
We did create a new game design paradigm, and right. With the tactical gameplay and the way squad command worked, and there's people that are still aping some of that interface, but we didn't invent the style. We borrowed from the And with Borderlands, the goal with the original thing was let's take a risk on every front, story, style, and design. Let's go ape on it.
Did you look at the market and say something's missing?
I don't know if I'd say look at the market.
Look at the slate of. Did you look at the games you were playing and the games that people were buying and say this is not what we're able to do? Or
I think after you don't want to. You don't want to go deep in without validating the market potential, but our creativity doesn't start with the marketplace or like with a commercial kind of view. It starts from more of a creative kind of perspective.
What do we want to build?
Yeah, so like for me, before Wolfenstein 3D and before I moved to Dallas and became a part of making the first person shooters be a thing, I was traditionally like a role playing gamer. I liked. The game I often credited is the game that I played the most of, and the game that I love the most is a game called NetHack. Sometimes I talk about like Colossal Cave Adventure, but these are like adventure games and role-playing games. And then Wolfenstein happened, and I kind of before that thought action games are kind of for dumb people. They're just like, oh, caveman, real fast, and I wanted more thinking, more depth to it. But Wolfenstein kind of showed me action games, there's some merit to that moment-to-moment fun. And as we were creating the first-person shooter genre, I was part of the original Duke Nukem team, and I worked at Apogee after Wolfenstein. We were figuring it out, and we kind of learned that moment-to-moment fun is all you need for engagement. There was no long-term growth in a game like Duke Nukem, right? Like the weapon, the numbers on the keyboard, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. That's the number of weapons you have, and the skills of Duke Nukem at the very beginning of the game in the first level are identical to the skills that he has at the very end of the game. And so it's all moment to moment. There's no long-term engagement. So the hypothesis was, are these things mutually exclusive? Could you have the moment-to-moment fun of a shooter and the long-range engagement of like an RPG? And can those actually fit together? Because nobody had ever done that before. And we believe, no, they're not mutually exclusive. We can meld them and make that amazing.
It's almost a game as a toy when you think of Duke Nukem. It is fun to play no matter when you play it, no matter how long you play it. 5 minutes or an hour, it's fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what moment-to-moment gameplay is about, and a lot of, it's funny because, a lot of the free-to-play kind of cell phone games are in that same kind of vibe where, they're really fast and they're
meant to be played on the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. Or when you're waiting in line at the grocery store or whatever. But it's about quick engagement,
right?
But it's not mutually exclusive with long-term engagement. And by putting the two together, that's what we stumbled upon. But at the beginning, like it started from that game design conceit. We didn't have a story or a universe.
Right.
We had a game design premise, and we had to build the story and the universe around it.
Mikey, how did you join in? How did you find yourself at Gearbox?
I was a creative director on one of those other boats. So I came over to Borderlands kind of late. It was right as the art style was changing. Which I mean
Gearbox in general. Like, I mean, I know you were
the beginning of Gearbox. Let's go back, Mikey. Come on. Counter-Strike.
Okay, so I was working on this little game called Counter-Strike and this little game called Day of Defeat. And Gearbox was doing Counter-Strike Condition Zero, one of a few companies to work on that game. And I was a texture artist. I started as an artist. And Brothers in Arms rolls around, and I was like, I can write. And then I hooked up with Colonel Antal. And
did you feel like
you didn't hook up with Colonel Antal? You collaborated and worked with Colonel Antal.
Sure.
Phrasing.
If you hooked up with Colonel Antal, you'd be dead.
What was your feeling going into writing your first game, and how did that inform the challenge of starting to write Borderlands?
I think one did not inform the other. Like, it's weird that I wrote Brothers in Arms and then Borderlands because they could not be less similar.
Right.
Road to Hell 30 is sort of, it's like the most realistic game, but also some like ideas from a 25-year-old snothead. War is bad. I'm smart.
That was the original subtitle.
It definitely like helped a lot. Borderlands rolled around, and that was the thing me and Randy really wrote together over like 40 hours.
Well, Christy too, though. Remember, she wrote she wrote a bunch of stuff, and then she wrote it under my direction, which was like, frankly, boring.
Your wife, Christy.
Yeah. Frankly, boring. And it was like, hey, Mikey, make this not suck. And Mikey punched everything up and like just wrote on top of it all. It was awesome.
Once you decided to make this game and go in this new direction and make something you hadn't seen before, when did you have an elevator pitch? When did you know what you were going to make and started sharing that idea with people?
Oh, very, very early. I remember there was just a few of us, and there was this guy that I worked with back at a company called Rebel Boat Rocker before I founded Gearbox, named Rob Hieronymus, who's a brilliant designer, and he also was with us when we founded Gearbox, and did some of the early stuff when we were doing work for hire. But he'd left the company and was doing some other stuff, and I knew he could be meaningful to the design of the game, and it was like I think it was like Matt Armstrong and Mark Tardif and I went and pitched him.
Did you feel like there was if he gets it, everyone will get it?
No, I just wanted him to get it because I wanted him to help.
Okay.
And so I didn't go into that thinking it was a test. But it did. That was I think the first time I did what you would consider an elevator pitch for Borderlands.
What was it?
It was basically what I just said. Hey, shooters and RPGs aren't mutually exclusive.
Put them together.
Let me talk about how they can fit.
Okay.
And how amazing would that be? And that was the pitch. We didn't even have a style or a story conceit yet. And I remember when Matt Van Dolen joined the project as our art director, and we were kind of fishing for the art direction, and we came up with 6 or so different style concepts. And the one we went with was actually realism. back at the beginning.
Yeah.
We did a realistic art direction, and it didn't fit. You know, the game design was just batshit, and the universe also, like trying to find the universe, because the game's about killing people and taking their shit. You have to come up with a universe where you can be a hero. The design demanded kill people, take their stuff. How can you be a good guy? So yeah,
It was Ninetoads that really like solidified it in my head. Like once you realize that he has 9 toes because he cut off one of them with his gun, the clipper with the blade on the front. Like once I understood that, I was like, oh, this game is fun.
When you started giving that initial pitch internally at Gearbox, or maybe even to other people in the industry, did you get pushback?
Well, we didn't really talk much to the people that weren't with us. So at the beginning, it was about talking with potential publishing partners. Gearbox at the time could not self-finance development. Also, we couldn't reach market. We weren't a publisher. Back then, if you wanted to sell a video game, you had to be able to, A, have a publishing licensing agreement with one of the first parties so you can make an Xbox or a PlayStation game. And then B, you had to be able to manufacture and distribute physical packaged goods and sell them to places like CompUSA and frickin' Babbage's, and like, so like we had to, no matter what, we were working with a publisher that had those relationships with retail and had those relationships with the platforms. And they were, if we were going to need them anyway, they were all willing to like, let us give us the money we needed to make the game, as they called it, advances. So we'd figure out what the rev share was, and then they'd advance us the development cost. So that was going to happen no matter what. So I went and talked to I guess all the publishers I could at the time, and most of them didn't really bother. But we had a few running after it, and that. That when all you need is 2 really, and you're gonna get somewhere.
Fight.
Yeah, you're gonna get a deal you like if you have at least 2.
Once you get into Babbage's, you're gold. Walden Software, you're gold.
But we had 2 publishers vying for us, and or actually we had 3 publishers, and so that made me really confident that okay, this is bankable. And we did that deal before we began pre-production, so it wasn't like I was like deep overly invested. We went through concept development, and that was when I sold it.
So you've got the concept that you want, the type of game you want to play, and the elements you want to combine. Mikey, what got Story Talk going? Where were you? Where was the first time that you thought, this is a way, for instance, we can make these looters and shooters the good guys, or was that not even part of the process?
In my head, the process, I remember it as make people that you want to hang out with for possibly a long period of time, and make people that you will listen to that are like, hey, I don't really know you, man, but could you just go murder like 12 people for me? I will give you a sandwich.
There is an element from the
and you're like, oh,
from the first moment of the first Borderlands games that carries on through the entire franchise, which is, hey, I've got a problem and I'd just rather not solve it.
So check out the hook while the DJ revolves
exactly. What would it take for you to go kill my problem away? And then that's that definitely, like the moment in Borderlands where Scooter tells you he was going to kill someone and then does. That was what solidified it for me. When you
to me it was like the best Scooter stuff, like when you get into the, what was it, the was it Rust? I don't remember which. Was it the Dust?
Rust Common?
Yeah, somewhere around. Anyway, you get in there and Scooter's like, hey, like, I want you to mess this guy up for me. Don't kill him though, because I'm gonna kill him on a later occasion. He messed up my mama's girly parts, and I just want you to show him who's boss.
That is.
And I was like, okay,
that's the first thing he said.
This is the one.
I think that's the first thing that's your. It's almost your introduction to the game. So yeah,
but it goes back earlier. Like, remember, Mikey, when like we needed a patch. We had this awesome kind of introduction with Claptrap and getting into the environment, but like it was too far before the next beat. So that's when I was like, I created the TK Baja character as a concept. I'm like, Mikey, like let's work figure this out, and like we were just ourselves doing the voice, and I think we already knew like, oh, we'll just have Eddings read that too. And I think you wrote to him.
Well, that was what was so funny about Borderlands, because it was a lot like Brothers in Arms 1 in that way. We're doing a lot of the voices to kind of prove it out as we're going before we get to like the full. Because you were crazy, Earl. That was never not the case.
But we all just sort of did temp voices. And we're like, I guess this is good enough, and it just held.
Does that say a lot about where Gearbox and the industry were at that place? Like, because that kind of thing doesn't fly as much these days.
I think it said a lot about our budget.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it does.
Sure.
I remember being like, oh, Randy wants to do a voice. And then you were like so good and so interesting and like cartoon ready. That always impressed me. I was like, Randy's a voice actor? What the hell?
Sometimes you have like an idea of how it should be, and like you're not the right guy for it. So you're like, remember when we were in the booth and we figured out the Marcus voice? And it was like, you remember that? Like, and I was like, okay, you and I beat that intro back and forth like 20 times, I think. Like we were like just throwing that back and forth before we had the script.
Yeah, beat by beat.
And then it was like, okay, it's kind of like Watto from Star Wars, but also like Sala from Indiana Jones. So like Mikey and I were just ad-libbing in the booth, like, I don't know, like do it like this, you know? And he's like, no, Mikey's like, no, more like, and like we were kind of like, okay. And then the guy just tried it, and it was like that. But sometimes, so you're not sure, and you have to find it with the actor.
Right.
But then other times, like, I kind of I don't know, Crazy Earl was just this, like, I just wanted him to be this super hick hillbilly, but different than what Mikey was doing with Scooter. Like, I wanted him to be just literally insane and just, like, totally afraid of, like, not cool with anybody.
Coming from Texas, you know good and well that there are lots of different kinds of hillbillies. So
I went into the booth and recorded a third of the script with Scooter just like this, just a normal Texas accent.
Right.
And everyone was so bored. And finally, I just started screaming
Honey,
like this.
we all sound like that.
Obama.
That's what it was. It was that Obama.
It was Obama.
And this,
everybody started laughing just because I shouted Obama.
Oh, my God.
There it is.
Mikey, as far as the world, you know where you want to go with the characters? You want pals, right? You want murder pals to hang out with. The world is a little Mad Maxy. It's a little space westerny. Were you thinking about those kinds of influences, or did it just come together?
We talked about Firefly a little bit, like clever sort of western in space, but also post-bio. I mean, it's in there in my own brain, but I don't know if like everyone's influences were kind of different, and that's what I really loved about the chaos of Borderlands.
Wagon Train.
It was just like
Wagon Train in space.
That's
right. Speaking of Wagon Train in space, let's talk about the world building elements of Borderlands. The status quo of the Borderlands galaxy. Evil corporations seem to be the looming threat, the driving force, stripping worlds of resources, displacing people and putting rich colonists in their place, making everyone that isn't a rich colonist suffer. Is this? I mean. That theme carries again through the entire Borderlands franchise.
But it's funny. The corporations aren't evil.
I can't wait for this perspective.
They just want to make money, and because the ones that are actually good at that end up with people that are
there are no ethical space billionaires.
They're just used to having everything go for them, so they become these fucking intolerable assholes. And that's it was actually one of the fun things we did with the pre-sequel was trying to play with like, hey, can we at all let you like relate to Handsome Jack? Is there any chance of that? Like, what if we go back before he was like as bad as he was? And of course, he's still in it. I hated him. Like, I love him, but I hate him like through the whole
The way that story is crafted, it trikes you into feeling bad for him and then instantly unrewards you for feeling bad for him. Punishes you.
We do that a lot. Like Mikey had a lot of good ones with Claptrap, where it's like the whole secret to that character is when he's fine and up, he's like insufferable and you just fucking hate him. And then what happens is that tears him down to a world like where no one shows up to his birthday party. Right. And then you're just like, you just feel sorry for him. And the second you give him an inch, you regret it, because he exploits that and becomes the worst asshole again.
A key element of Claptrap's character is that you are his subordinate.
Yeah, well, he
when he feels good,
minion, and so it was funny because like if you go back to Borderlands 1, like the Claptrap that we know today was just primordial, And in the game, it's like the very, very primordial Claptrap. But, you know, Mikey was exploring a lot, like when we were trying to market the game, we were just making whatever we could. And we just did these episodes that like Mikey just wrote them and made them. And I was like, yeah, go for it. Let's have fun, you know? And like sometimes I'd know the plan, sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes we're like, hey, what if we did it this way? And then like other times you just run off the reservation and go batshit.
On that note, can I just say what a pleasure it was to invent a character who just goes, hello, in the background in those dumb things. And it caught on so much that ended up in Poker Night 2. I remember they were like, can you give us heyo in like 25 different emotions?
Like a sad heyo, a somber heyo.
That Steve character was just a goof Mikey did in one of the marketing pieces. It wasn't even in the game. It was just a marketing. It was such a funny.
Because of Gibby.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's right. It was named after Steve Gibson. Yeah. He was just making fun of Steve.
Heyo.
What is a borderland?
A borderland is the messy space between two other spaces. Like, you know, where, like, imagine where the highway meets the grass next to it. And like, there's a place there's the grass and there's the highway. And then there's a place where there's like the little broken bits of asphalt, but grass kind of growing through. And it's neither the road nor the prairie, but it's kind of both, but it's kind of neither. And it's a little messy, but it's kind of cool because it's funky and it's got both things in it. The Borderlands is a Reese's peanut butter cup. It's when you accidentally get your fucking chocolate in the peanut butter, and then it turns out you've never had a flavor like that before, and it's delicious.
You just made Mikey physically whoa. His whole face went whoa.
Yeah, no, that's why the title, because the title makes no sense if you think about it literally. It's a planet, and we're calling it the Borderlands. You know, but no, the Borderlands is more of an idea. It's about that uncomfortable place between two other places that is weird and messy, but actually awesome and cool. And you get to figure out what it means for you. And that's like, so like in the case of the design, it's perfect. It's this weird blend between role-playing game and shooter. In the case of the universe, it's like a weird mix between sci-fi and Western.
It's defined less by what it is and more by what it's next to.
Right. And if you talk about like the characters, it's like the borderland between the people, like who they want to be and who they actually are. And all of the characters that like Mikey created and how we were developing it kind of reflected that attitude of like, what's the difference between how they're presenting in this moment and who they're trying to be or who they wish they could be, and even the player, like it's aspirational. Like I am level 1 when I begin. I'm not who I want to become. And it's about, there's the growth there and the difference between that as you progress. So that's all the Borderland. And it's something we can all relate to, even though it's just sort of a thematic kind of underscoring to the whole thing.
So you've got that concept, but you put the planet Pandora in it where the game is actually set. When we meet or when we land on Pandora as a player, it's already had quite a history. It's been used and abandoned by corporations. Very far in the past, it was a site of, alien archaeology, and we later learned that, vaults and alien prisons and monsters. What was essential about Pandora that made this game work?
I think that
it has to be the most.
Go ahead, you do it.
I was just gonna say, like, to me, it's like the most dangerous place imaginable, and like the sort of nihilism inherent to like living in a place like that, because you can die at any moment, right? Like,
it's the frontier of frontiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes
you could make a bunch of money or you could die. Those are your two options.
Yeah, and to me it's like, I don't know, like I remember when the first time I was pitching the game to like what could become customers, like when I was at Gamescom, and it was literally the first time we were out, and I was like doing press meeting after press meeting, and I had this like 20-minute monologue of the backdrop of the planet itself. And, the fact that I couldn't even reduce it down below 20 minutes, and I felt like that was frustrating and painful for me to get it to 20 minutes to explain this backdrop. I think that's when I kind of, we have done too much work here. We've made this rich this is really, really rich. This game's not even going to work. Why did we do all that work and we're still trying to, figure out how to find the time to, get good voice actors cast?
Were you trying
that aren't me and Mikey?
were you trying hard not to make comparisons when describing it? Let it stand on its own legs?
No, I wasn't. I didn't need to make any comparisons. When I would get into that backstory of the place, of the universe, it was like, I was using English and words people can understand, but it was like a whole new universe. So it was, that was kind of cool, to know, we are in fertile ground here.
We've got our universe, we've got our planet, our setting. Let's talk about who populates it, our Vault Hunters. As we've said, they're not really the good guys. Are they the better guys once you get onto Pandora?
Well, they're good guys. I think that a Vault Hunter is, they're different than the guys that run the corporations, for example, their lust for power is selfish. I think Vault Hunters have a curiosity, and I think they also, like, part of what drives a lot of them is not wanting. It's almost like a cyberpunk kind of idea, like not wanting that power to be misused in the hands of people that don't know how to handle power.
We watched that play out over the course of the mainline games. There's a especially with the character of Lilith, there is oh no, I'm too deep into this, and now it's my responsibility to guard it and to keep it safe. But initially, there is, I can take this for what it's worth to me. But I think it's the difference in a Vault Hunter and a CEO in this universe. To me, is a Vault Hunter gets what they asked for and then goes, "Oh no, this is not to be exploited. This is dangerous. This is world ending. I should protect it." And then the corporations are going, "We should further exploit this and get everything we can out of it."
Yeah, maybe. I try to think about each Vault Hunter with their own. Like, there's some that are definitely more selfish than others. They're more in it for their personal growth and their personal power. Some are in it for, some are pure, like Indiana Jones. Like, it belongs in a museum, Marcus.
Right, yeah.
That's why I'm doing it. But there's some that are totally, they are a little mercenary like, and I think that range is okay.
Yeah.
I think what makes and in fact, in some respects, our villains are Vault Hunters too. Like they're after the same stuff.
Yeah.
They're but there's a reason why they're not on the co-op team.
Mikey, when creating the four main Vault Hunters in Borderlands 1, did you ever think about where they fell on that scale of survivor to opportunist?
Less so than we did in games after that. I know Anthony spent a lot of time on that on Borderlands 2. Borderlands 1 was just kind of like, let's give you a good entry point and let's make you like excited to go through this thing. But Lilith wasn't much back then. I don't recall.
Do you remember when we were working out like what was going to happen during the character select? Do you remember? Yeah. I think that was like, because we made the characters just to be fun gameplay. We weren't really thinking about their personalities or their backstories a lot. That wasn't really a deal. But then, like, okay, you're in the bus and you're going to highlight the characters as you're deciding which one to pick. And, Mikey, I think it was you that was like, hey, Marcus should say shit. And you just wrote some shit up.
How did the Marcus intro come about?
It was a patch. We have no time left. Oh fuck, nobody knows what the fuck is going on. We were so wrapped up in it's because having told that 20-minute like backdrop, like we all knew the shit. But like now we're really far along in development. Like the game is basically done and we're putting it in front of people. And they're like, what? Like, there's no frame of reference.
Right.
Just go right into the rock and roll intro. And so it was literally like in the last minute, all hands. It was like Mikey, Kester, and I rolling in. We just sat in that office together. And Mikey and I banged the script back and forth like a zillion times till the wee hours of the morning.
It was a lot.
And then Kester was just rapidly drawing the pencil sketches.
Yeah.
And I think you threw it in that. Did you just throw it into After Effects and just cut it together once we had the guy record it?
Yeah.
Mikey did the video post on that.
on the yeah. I was like, how to make ink look like it's drawing itself. I did okay.
Was that
I
the
think
most
I did.
punk rock element of this whole process?
The whole game was punk rock, dude.
The whole process was pretty punk rock, but the rock and roll intro is the most punk rock because
Like
that felt like a unifying thing.
we also
Like the game felt like it was coming together once that went in to me.
we also got it in the build like it feels like it's probably days, but it feels like hours before we were like really like going to certification.
According to Mikey, the last time
It was pretty late in development.
Mikey's told me before that you basically dragged a desk into an office and then for 36 hours.
No, I just literally
just lived there and wrote.
sat next to Mikey where his workstation was with a laptop up, and we were just like literally throwing lines back and because what happened was like for example, one of the great examples is Tanis. So the original idea of Tanis that I had was I needed an Oracle character that kind of understood the rules of the universe, and we were going to use echo logs to kind of give like information, and it was purely informational. So like I asked Christy, hey, can you write here's the information that I need, just they were like literally like 2-word kind of notes, write a series of what are going to be echo logs and do it kind of like, you know, Captain's log, stardate 2147.
Yeah.
I'm Patricia Tanis and I'm in my outpost. Da, da, da. And so she wrote it like that. And I'm like, oh, what have I done? And Christy was the one that's like, I did what you asked. This is not.
Why did you ask me to do that?
This is not fun, you know? Yeah. So Mikey then took it and he literally just like, it was in an Excel sheet because each one was like a file that was going to go in. Like, and so he rewrote each one and it was like, this is fucking amazing. And he like created this whole like story and character and like a whole universe around Tanis, but we lost some of the info because he was just making it good. So he threw it back to me. I was like, okay, so I'm like trying to surgically force in some of the information. So I like rewrote it again, threw it back to him, and he's like, yeah, but you took away the. So like we did that, back and forth like a lot, but we had like everything, and it was like this was the night before the first real recording session with the professional talent. Like when we're doing stuff, we can just go in the booth and just scream into a mic and that's like, oh, this sounds good. I'll just record it right now and then throw it in the game. But when we're going down to the fucking studio and we're going to have professional actors in a booth with an engineer and I'm writing checks, you know, for all this, it's like, we should probably show up with a script. You know, we did because we were up until like 4 a.m. the night before, after having done like a bender for hours and hours and hours and hours, and we had to be there like 6 a.m.
Mikey, when you took those Tanis echoes and started putting life and personality into them, at what point did you decide she was a trauma survivor, and how did that inform her character going forward?
That was always there. I think what informed the character was me sort of coming to terms with my own sort of on the spectrum diagnosis at the time, we'll say, which was ongoing for a couple more years. But like I was sort of wanting to write a character from that perspective. And I was like, what happens when they go through trauma? So it actually had a very real start point. And it turned out that was some of the darkest, most interesting, like, I don't know, it was very magnetic. Like Tanis to this day is still a character you can just sit down and write.
Was it one of those things that kind of, once she revealed herself to you, it just started pouring out?
Once I got to the tape recorder and like sort of in my own brain going through like, why does she date a tape recorder? Because that's like her own way of dealing with her own grief and an inability to like handle all of this substantial loss. Like Tanis sort of personifies things and then becomes attached to them.
Right. And that's obviously it's personal. It's dark. It's meaningful. Let's go the other way. Claptrap. Where did we come up with Claptrap? Did you need a mascot? Did you need a guide, someone to onboard the player, or was it just fun?
Well, there are two things going on there. The first thing, absolutely, you know, there was a moment when we were signing the game where I got all the designers in the room and said, like, look, I want to attach a character to each function. So so that was there, but like we didn't have Claptrap. So there was a guy, Lauren, who was a concept artist, and he was just doodling. And Claptrap wasn't even. There was no plan. He wasn't even in the game. He was doodling with some robot shit, and there was this kind of trapezoidal design that Brian Martell noticed, and he liked it. And he's like, "I like this character. We should do something with this." And he called my attention to it, and I was like, "No, absolutely not. Like, we're not gonna put a fucking character. We're not gonna make another robot character. Like, it's so trite. Like, everyone does the robot character. Like, it's kind of a joke now in the Star Wars series,
right?
You know, it's like you got to keep making the cute robot. And then it was like, yeah, but I'm like, you know, and I don't know why. I one of my Achilles heels. I don't know why, but a lot of both my worst and also best decisions at Gearbox over the years were just trying to make Brian happy. And like, it's literally a double-edged sword. Like, I don't know. I just like making people happy, and he was around me a lot. So like, he really so I'm like, okay, if we're going to do it, he has to be like the worst human being in the game. He has to be like the most ridiculous character, and he has to be over the top. And I actually, this is kind of weird, almost timely to think about it now. The character I added to mine, going back to Star Wars, was actually the RX character from Star Tours that was voiced by Paul Rubens.
Yeah,
that was in the theme park ride. And the second I thought of that, that's when I went to David Eddings and said, "Hey, can you do me a favor? We're gonna just throw some random shit." And I actually wrote a couple of the first things, and Raisin Varna wrote some things, and we just put him in a booth and let him ad lib that. And that was for the prototype. That wasn't even in the game, but I wanted to prove it first. So we made a simple model, had Eddings read some shit, and when the gag worked, where like the robot's like being a kind of like snarky, like, "Look at me, I'm dancing, you know," and then he's like, "I'm gonna open this door," and then he like, open, and then the door opens and he tries to roll through it, but it doesn't quite open all the way, and he smashes his head, which is also a nod to Star Wars, you know, like the stormtroopers walk, and he goes, "Ow," and then he backs up and has to wait for it to go up. Like the robot miscalculating, the robot being like not merely human, but like the most fallible human, like it worked in that test, and I was like, okay, it's just gonna happen. And then from there it just like happened. Like everybody did stuff. Mikey did a lot of great stuff. Like
Mikey, did you have any
animators did a lot of great stuff. Raisin did a lot of great stuff. David ad-libbed a bunch of stuff and added a lot to the character just in the booth, you know. So
Mikey, did you add anything to Claptrap that you feel was sort of indelible and remains a core to his character?
Yeah, I mean, we did all the shorts. Me and Dave had a bunch of fun back then, just sort of making stuff up as we went.
Was born out of spontaneity.
Yeah, I didn't come up with "Check Me Out, I'm Dancing," so I can't really take too
no,
much
he just
credit.
he lifted that from a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Like, because that's we talked about it. Was like, look, go old school, like Chuck Jones, Tex Avery, get like some like Three Stooges in there, you know, and you know, it's just lifted. Like that was literally a line from Bugs Bunny.
That's funny.
Both of you play characters that persist throughout Borderlands. Mikey, you play Scooter. Randy, you play Crazy Earl. Where do those characters come from, and is it more than just a voice?
Oh yeah, Crazy Earl's my half brother. Yeah, like backwoods West Virginia. Like,
so this is lived in experience. This is
oh yeah.
Is his attitude backwoods West Virginia?
He's you know what's funny is his attitude is more my half brother's attitude is more Scooter like, but I don't know. It just gives me access to that, like that Appalachian,
right?
You know. Get off my fucking property.
Yeah, I can also see the
shotgun.
I can also see buying moonshine through a slot in a door, you know, where you never see the guys selling it.
Well, that was actually like we didn't have any time. We knew we needed a character. Somebody had built a head that never got stitched up to anything. Yep. So all we had was a head, and I was like, "Oh, this is so good." So it was my idea. It's like, no, we don't have any time or budget. All we're going to use is the head. How the fuck? Like, put him behind a door. There's a slot. All you see is his eyes, maybe his nose, a little bit of his mouth. Boom, close, and that's all you need. You just need a head.
There are videos of people
totally budget saving. That's literally one like that. No time and budget. Just use what you have.
You can find videos of people no clipping through his shed and seeing just the floating head.
Yeah, it just cuts off at the neck. There's nothing there.
Mikey, we've talked a bit about Scooter, but other than his accent and pushing it, was there anything else you were trying to do with that character?
Scooter was just an annoying shouter, like just do all the lines like this all the time. And it was when we got to Tales from the Borderlands, I realized, oh, you're in the Telltale game now. You have to like exist outside of just shouting single sentences. So I had to find what Scooter's conversational voice. What does Scooter sound like when
actor?
Mikey I had to
None of us are actors. Mikey
weird.
became an actor to do the Tales from the Borderlands.
The funniest thing about Scooter to me is I've known Mikey for over 20 years. I've not known Borderlands for over 20 years, but the moment Scooter's vocal cadence came out, I was like, I know this guy. I know this guy deeply because it's shout every line like this and then maybe say a little something else.
Just hey, it's fine.
But then, don't care. Yeah, there's that.
Don't even know what you're going to say. Pause mid sentence. Yeah.
It's two perspectives in one. Right? Absolutely do this, but not if you don't want to. I mean, I guess you don't want to.
So there was a line. Just to say the Scooter line to me that personifies Scooter is in the third DLC from Borderlands 1 where he yells Jesus Christ titty cinnamon. I can't believe I got away with that. To this day, I still can't believe I got away with that. It's in a game that shipped. I did that. I have done this to you.
By the time we got to the third DLC, I think we filtered out all of the hardcore evangelists. At that point, we were safe.
Other than Scooter's
Jesus Christ, titty cinnamon.
There's no better four words
if
to combine together.
Other than Scooter's final catch a ride as he met his end.
Catch a ride.
I feel like "Where are you, Scrappy" is the other line that defines Scooter's tragedy, his personal tragedy, when his dog dies or runs away or is taken from him.
But everyone in Borderlands experiences tragedies, and to Scooter, I think writing the poem to that girl in 2 is just as tragic as losing his dog.
He's a collection of tragedies. Aren't we all?
Did you know Scooter died a virgin, but he didn't?
I can't understand that unless you explain it.
Yeah, Scooter thinks he died a virgin, but he was actually extremely drunk, blackout when he lost his virginity. So he has no memory of actually.
Where do we find that out?
Yeah, this is. Someday we'll tell the story.
This is a deep lore. Deep lore.
This is the Scooter deep lore. Where's my Scooter DLC? Damn it!
Scooter
That's
only
what
DLC.
I'm saying. Let's unlock this lore.
Vault Hunters, this podcast is launching alongside a new bundle from Gearbox and 2K that includes every Borderlands game to date, all for one great price. It's called the Borderlands Collection Pandora's Box, and you don't even need a vault key to open it, just a valid credit card or debit card. Unless you talk to Crazy Earl, he'd probably accept moonstones or iridium shards or your underwear as payment.
What you want?
Yeah, I have no idea. Grab it on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. As we've talked about these characters and this setting, is Pandora a place for outcasts? Are you rejected by society, or are they rejecting what they see around them?
From my perspective, based on the audience that Borderlands has built, it is definitely a place for the outcasts.
Well, you've either been left behind or cast aside, or you're going there for a purpose. And sometimes you're going to disappear, or sometimes you're going to find the thing.
It's like Alaska.
Yeah. So there's so you have people that are specifically there facing the danger because they are there for the vault, or they're there for the Iridian artifacts. And you have other people that are there trying to just get away from the attention.
Right.
It's like no one will find
your Crazy Earls and whatnot.
And then there's other people that were just left behind. They were there and they were abandoned, and they could be good and useful, or they could be psychos, but they were abandoned, and so they're just surviving. And all three are kind of living together in this place.
We've talked about a few characters that came about out of gameplay necessity. Was Angel one of those?
Yeah.
That's a Randy question.
I mean, dude, you were there. I needed a different, that like her original character, I just called her Voice of God. Vogue. We called her Vogue.
Right.
Because we needed. It was so I needed something to direct the player that the player could just trust and go, okay, this is what I got to do now. So like she literally says like, I'm not going to tell you shit. You don't even know what I am, but you get off the bus, go do the thing. There's going to be a robot. Talk to him, and you're like, yes, ma'am, I'll do that. Like, yes, I'll do that. Like, so she needed to be this voice that was like trustworthy and inviting, that you had no clue what it was about. And in fact, we didn't quite know. I just knew we needed to pull the player through some things, and we needed a voice. We needed to manifest that in a voice. It couldn't be just text on screen. It had to be a character that was going to give us enough so that I'm like, okay, I kind of know what my purpose is, and I have a mission to move ahead, and I have enough motivation to figure this out. And that's what her purpose was. As we used her for that, we developed a character and we developed a story, and a lot of that, came between 1 and 2.
When did the decision to show the Hyperion satellite that Angel was potentially broadcasting from come into play?
That was just that actually started from a Skybox goal. Like, we're like working on Borderlands 2. It's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have we want this thing always there in the sky, and it's a big H, so it's like Handsome Jack's H. Is it an ego thing? Is it a Hyperion H?
I meant the end reveal that our sort of after credits stinger.
Oh, that thing with the interplanetary ninja assassin. That was just Mikey goofing off. Like the interplanetary ninja assassin was literally just a dumb Mikey idea one day. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't suck. Just do it.
Dumb Mikey idea, because now
it's a great Mikey idea.
Harass me on Twitter.
No, I think it was awesome. It wouldn't be in the game if I didn't like it. Remember how ruthless I was with Brothers in Arms? I cut 2/3 of your shit.
Yeah, I write too much. That's good. That's what you want in a writer.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get a lot of good stuff, and then if you can cut it down to the best of the good stuff, then you're just in good shape.
I remember when we were kind of talking about the ending, and I remember Randy specifically talking about wow him at the beginning and the ending matters a little, and that's not the wording you use, but does that jog anything?
Well,
make sure the ending blows, or the beginning blows them away.
Of course, but I like the non sequitur at the end when we were falling back, because my original plan was the whole thing was going to be a loop.
A loop, yeah.
After
we recorded that.
After you kill the tentacle, Marcus pulls up in the bus, and he invites you to get on the bus, and then you're in the bus picking your character.
The bus to New Game Plus.
And it's a bus. Yes, it's a bus. Exactly. It's a bus to New Game Plus. And then it's just in a literally infinite loop where what the fuck's happening? Yeah. I was going to play it straight too. You get on the bus and then you're in character select. And then, okay, you just do it. And then you get off the bus and Claptrap's and you're like, what the hell?
What killed that?
Sanity.
Cooler heads prevailed.
Better game developers than me.
Let's talk about the beginning and end, because I think everybody has a lot of feelings about both. The rock and roll intro is iconic to the Borderlands franchise, and the first song, "Ain't No Rest for the Wicked" by Cage the Elephant. How did you pick that song?
That's a good one. So Mikey and the guys were working on the rock, we didn't call it the rock and roll intro. Actually, there was no music in it. There was no music in it. And it was the craziest thing, because I had there's this radio show that Connie, who's a Gearbox, I think she was our receptionist, her husband or boyfriend or whatever, partner, had this radio show on the local alternative station called the Adventure Club.
Was it on the Eagle?
No, it was on Edge.
Okay.
So basically, every radio station, people just send demos and they don't play them, right? There's just thousands of songs coming in all the time. And so the Adventure Club, he was digging through this stuff, finding things and just playing it. And I liked listening to the show because that's where you discover weird shit, right? So I listened to that show, and he played this song from this band out of Kansas City, Cage the Elephant, and it was called "In One Ear." And I was like, this is their dude. What the fuck? It'd been a while since I heard something good on it, really on Adventure Club. I'm like, that's gonna work. And so I went home and I immediately started Googling it, because when you're listening to the radio, it's you hear the song and then it goes, hey, that was blah blah blah, and I'm like, like I said it to myself 50 times in my head so I wouldn't forget it. As I'm driving home, like I was driving in the car listening to this, and I get home and I had it ingrained in my brain. So I Google search and I found this track that was like, at the time, it wasn't anything. It was, I think there were like 300 views on YouTube.
Yeah, there's no guarantee in 2009 that a band has an online presence.
That's right.
Of any kind.
Yeah, yeah. Like we're primordial social media at this point, right? So like and I listened to the song. I probably listened to it. I probably contributed as many views that night to what it already had on this little video they had made. And so I go into work the next morning, and Mikey's like, "Hey, dude, Mikey was pumped. He said, dude, you got to come here. I think I cracked this." And he's like, What if the intro is to music? And he's recut it with a Bob Dylan track.
Oh, it was Dylan.
That's right. It was Bob Dylan, and it was all acoustic, and it was I can't remember the song. But I was like, this is fucking dope, Mikey. And also, like I know how to talk to Bob Dylan. There's no fucking universe he's going to let us license this song for a game with 87 bazillion guns in it.
I really wanted to try is the dumb part. Also, that's how young I was.
Yeah, and then also I kind of thought like, but what if since we're doing everything else new, what if we introduced the world to a new band with this? So I said, I listened to this track like 50 times, and it's crazy. Like, take what you just edited, turn the music to off, play the video. I'm going to play this song at the same time, and we're just going to do it on top of each other. And it fucking worked the first time, and it was just unbelievable. And like both Mikey and I were sitting there going like, what the fuck?
Yeah, we got to find these guys'
phone
number.
What the fuck? It was crazy how magical it was.
Yeah.
And then I called up Christoph because he used to work at BMG. He was the president of 2K Games. I'm like, I don't know how to do this, but you got to get me the song. You got to figure this out. And it was a mess because they signed up with some like small like UK label. Like
they live there now.
Well, they're all over the place, but yeah, they went there for a while. But I don't know if are they there now?
I believe they are. I think they're London based.
Okay, they were there for a minute, and I think maybe they've been going back and forth. But yeah, and they ended up having to do like that label had to do a deal with Sony so that they could make it happen.
Probably the craziest phone call that small label ever got too.
Oh yeah, it was nuts. And then like, and the coup de grace, of course, was like a couple months later. Sony calls me asking permission when they debut their album if they can put As Heard in Borderlands as like the little invader at Best Buy because that's how you sold music was on a compact disc in a physical store. And I was just like, this is the greatest day of my life.
The first time I
ever heard that song, I was at a house party. The trailer for Borderlands comes on. I happened to be holding an acoustic guitar because it was a house party, Mikey. You know how I do.
Yeah, that is true.
And I started playing along to it, and the guy whose house it was like, what the fuck? What? You can play this song? This is the most rocking fucking song I've ever heard.
It is. They're onto something. It's a great song.
Yeah, there's a logic to it.
Being totally honest, Randy came in like super excited. I found the song. And I'm like, you listen to weird stuff. I don't believe you. And then he plays it. And I was so like, because it was the song.
Do you remember at all what the Dylan track was?
No, there was some wandering guitar.
It wasn't. It wasn't even a B-side. It was like a deep cut Dylan song.
Yeah. Because I'm like RT Michael boy trying to Dylan B-sides.
Did you set a bar with that rock and roll intro that it demands carrying on throughout the franchise?
2 was hard.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we pained over that too. I remember when Brian came in and said, "Hey, you got to listen to these guys," and played the heavy for me the first time I listened to the heavy. And it was, I think he played How You Like Me Now, which we did license and use for, I think we used it for the end credits. We used like 4 heavy set songs, the heavy song. Once we decided, okay, Short Change Hero, and Mikey leaned into that for the Borderlands 2 intro.
I had to fight for that. Yeah. People were like, it's too sad. And I was like, no. Let me have my emotions.
we've talked a bit about the ending of Borderlands 1.
By the way, the heavy, just to come back to it, like that song was made in Borderlands 3. It was made for Borderlands 3.
Really?
Yeah, I went to both Cage the Elephant and the heavy, and I was like, okay, let's do this right. We kind of first sketched out an outline, so I told them what we were doing for the game and for the intro. And they're like, okay, so they started sketching demos, and then we took some of the like weird kind of tests they each were doing, and we storyboarded out our intro. And then I brought the storyboards back and pitched them each, and they were making songs to it. The heavy just like leaned in, and they went directly to the. Like it was like we're on target. The Cage were like the song was awesome, but they were getting like they were artists, you know, so they were kind of exploring their own shit a little bit.
Right.
So that we ended up licensing their song too for the end credits, I think. But yeah, that heavy song, like I mean, that was made for Borderlands 3. Like
did you
the
feel
video is a Borderlands 3 video.
like at that point you can now say reference this is real.
Yeah.
Everyone knows this. It's in culture.
Well,
now right to that.
Yeah, I think that was part of it, but I was just grateful for their incredible music. So it was really fun to collaborate and work with those guys, and it was so fun to be in the room with them. And one time, like with Cage, I drove down to they were playing in Austin, and they're like, hey, just come down, and I went down there and we just hung out after their show, and just talked about the game and talked about the music, and that was actually before I met with them in the boardroom with the outline and the storyboards. Just talking like just influence.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was cool. Those guys are dope.
As far as the ending of Borderlands, the game ends with the revelation of the destroyer, the tentacle monster, but then the story continues through the DLC.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that story wraps up in the DLC, or do you feel like it's just a continuing story that goes throughout Borderlands 2 and 3 and pre-sequel?
I think of the DLC for Borderlands 1 as like television episodes set in the universe of this movie.
Yeah.
You know, if it, like to make an analogy. I think the Borderlands 1 has a beginning, middle, and end for Borderlands 1, and that leads, you know, then we take up the next chapter in Borderlands 2. I think the DLC, those can be standalone television episodes. I don't think they like are sequentially meaningful to the like I could take General Knox as its own beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
I can take the Zombie Island of, you know, Dr. Ned's own beginning, middle, and end.
And Mikey, we had talked a bit about interplanetary ninja assassin Claptrap. How did that start? You had said that it was something in Photoshop?
Oh yeah, I had a big Photoshop file of all the title cards, so I just made up a fake title card, and I think we kind of went with it because it got half a smile.
Who looked over your shoulder and said, "Oh, that's funny. That goes in the game."
Oh, he's a ninja assassin, you say? Well, that's something.
When you're developing the game, I feel like I already know the answer to this question, but it seems like fun is at the forefront, especially with this first one. It's not you were focused more on gameplay and fun than building a franchise. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, look, you always hope that what you're doing is going to be meaningful enough to justify more effort, but you never count on that.
What do you?
If anything, like our tragedy is maybe hoping too much for that.
Right.
Where we like plant seeds and like, you know, I'm still trying to finish the Brothers in Arms stuff, you know, and it's like I feel like situation. Like I feel like unfinished business there, you know, and then we definitely make that for ourselves with Borderlands. The first game was, you know, it was definitely Old West. We were figuring it out, but the fun in making it, I think, increases with each game because a couple things happen. The people that were there for the previous game or the games before it are getting more mastery and more comfort and understanding of what we've got on our hands and how to play with it. And we're having more fun playing in the space than just surviving to get through the difficulties of game development. And then when you add to that the fact that people join us because they want to be a part of it and they've proved to the people around them that they have capability and talent that are worthy enough for the people that are already here to let them join the team. And then they're just fucking stoked that they get to be part of that process and make something cool for Borderlands. And I'm stoked because all these crazy fresh ideas come in and make it even. So to me, it's like the fun keeps growing.
That's interesting.
In the process.
So
and I think it comes through in the games. Like I think Borderlands 3 is a bigger, better game than Borderlands 2, which is a bigger, better game than Borderlands 1.
So Borderlands 2 is the first time you had the opportunity to bring people on the team who played Borderlands 1.
Yes.
But did not work on it.
That's right.
How did that change was there any sort of old guard versus new guard perspective, or was it all just a big family?
Gearbox doesn't do that. There's something about our culture where that's not really a thing. Like, because for someone to join the company, the people they're working with have to invite them. And so tends to be this like natural enculturalization that happens where we're all like, this is amazing. We all get to work together. I can't believe it. You're so talented. I can't believe you want to work with me. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you are inviting me to work with you. And it's, and we're just stoked to be like in each other's presence because there's so much amazing talent around. I just feel grateful I get to work with so many dope people.
We touched briefly on the original visual style for the game being realistic. What led to the drastic switch and when did that occur?
Yeah. Do you want me to speak to that? I can speak to that.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I remember like the people. I remember Brian Cousins and Brian Martell and Carl Shedd.
Yeah.
Was a level designer
and Stephen Cole. So what happened was
Stephen Cole.
Yeah. So what happened was, we there was definitely something wrong. The art direction did not fit with the vibe of what the game design needed. We felt the fracture for a long time. And we had this weird moment where there were some folks at the company that had an idea for how to try some stuff. And here's my experience. I was doing my usual, like, walk around, just talk to people, see what's going on. And then somebody said, like, oh, dude, have you seen what Carl's been working on? I'm like, what do you mean? Is Carl not working on what he's supposed to be working on? And they're like, oh, never mind. I didn't.
No.
So I go to Martell. I'm like, what's going on, dude? You got a little skunk works going on over there in the corner? What's going on? And Brian's like, okay, you know how we are not happy, like we're all like the art's not working? Like, yes, we think we have something, but we didn't want to tell you until we look at it. I'm like, you can't just like divert like all these resources though. Right. Like, I always have designer brain, but also production brain, like going simultaneously. So especially back then, because I'm kind of like wearing a lot of hats, I'm accountable for the budget and I'm accountable for the quality, which is like insane to have to manage both, right? So at that period in time, I said, okay, look, I'll tell you what, who are you taking? And there's like 5 guys. And I said, you have 3 weeks and then you're going to show me where you're at and we're going to make the call. I'll decide whether this lives or dies. And so they went in the tank for 3 weeks. And they did it, and then the meeting was scheduled, and I remember like walking into the meeting thinking to myself, like, first of all, Brian left town, like he wasn't even in the meeting. Like I was like, oh, is he terrified? Like why did he, like does he not want to be there for Judgment Day? Like what's happening? And I'm walking in the meeting going, I'm an idiot because we're like alpha, like we got to get to like whatever this is, I have to shoot it in the head. And all I did was get them attached, let them get 3 weeks more attached to this thing before I kill it. Like this is the worst. Like I'm a dumbass. I'm the worst producer ever. I can't believe I let this happen. And that's what I was thinking going into it. But then there were reasons why I let it happen, and the people involved in what we were trying to accomplish in this situation was like, I guess at the time I thought it was worth the risk. But going into it, it's like it doesn't matter what they show me. I have to kill this. And then we sat down and they showed me this little vignette they'd made with the
Firestone.
Yeah, it was primordial Firestone, basically with the art direction. And I was like, it works. It definitely it's awesome, and it's distinct, and it definitely solves the dissonance between the game design and the art. So I was like, can we even do it? And fucking Stephen Palmer, who's producing at the time, genius. He tracked everything they did and how long it took, and he compared that to the existing schedule. He said, not only can we do it, but it's actually more efficient than what we were doing before from a production perspective. And I was like, touchdown. So then I directed this little teaser trailer because I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. but I have to now sell it to our publishing partner because they're like financing all this, taking all the risk. I'm going to radically divert the art direction after we've announced the game, after we were on the cover of Game Informer magazine, after we've gone to Gamescom with this product. Like how that? So I had to like convince them. So I directed this trailer that we made. There's this song that my dad had, or my dad had this album I used to play, and the song on it called Greenfields by the Brothers Four. And it was like this eerie kind of thing. But like there's like this weird kind of turn like in the second measure or third measure of every verse. So I re-edited the song to like truncate it a little bit. And and then I directed this trailer with some of the assets from the thing, and I brought that with me to San Francisco. I flew out to San Francisco. First, I showed Greg Goby, who's like the creative guy at 2K. He's like, I love it. And then I showed the marketing people and the sales people, and like, this is what we need. And then I showed Christoph Last in a room full of those people who had already evangelized it too. And we did it.
What do you think it's done for Borderlands as a franchise to have a style that you can recognize from 100 feet away?
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword, frankly, if I'm really honest about it. On one level, it's like awesome. I love it. I love that it's distinctive. I love that we have a unique look. On the other level, I think it's put a ceiling on the franchise that's been hard to deal with. One of my most painful experiences was at I went to GameStop every year back in 2009, 2010, 2000 all the way through like 2015. They were the #1 video game retailer on the planet, and every year they have a massive convention where they go somewhere like Las Vegas, and there'd be like 5,000 store managers that manage each of the GameStop stores around the country and around the world. And so like a 5,000 person convention is a pretty big freaking convention, you know. So and we'd go there and we'd talk about the games we're selling, and we have a booth, you know. So it was like E3, but for only GameStop managers. It was crazy. So I'm there and I'm running the booth, and we're talking about, I don't remember what we were pimping, probably DLC or something. Gave me the year edition, and managers kept coming up to me, and they all had a story about how much they love Borderlands, how they discovered it, and how and I heard the story enough times where it became like the same story in my mind. Here was the story. Yeah, I have this one customer, and he loves shooters, and he came in, and I'm like, dude, you got to try this game. And he looks at it, and he's like, I don't think so, man. I don't like cartoons. I'm like, no, trust me. You got to try it. Just take it home and play it. If you don't like it, I'll give you a refund. And he takes it home, and they freaking loved it, man. And they loved it. And I sold that copy for you. And I'm like, and they're thinking I love this story.
Yeah.
I'm fucking dying inside. I'm dying inside because what it's actually telling me is the default level of that customer was to reject it because of the art. Reject the game because of the art. And I was like, oh, you're killing me here, man. Can't we just be artists and be cool? Nope, you got to be commercial.
Is that only in the first one, though? Does you feel like that switched after it was established?
Well, I think it's a thing. I think it's why there's still 20 million people every time showing up for Call of Duty.
So
I think realism is the thing. I think there's a certain it's like when you're a child and you look at a painting. If they showed you Picasso and they showed you some like senior in high school trying to do realism, the child's gonna, oh, that's the better painting because it looks more realistic. And they can't even identify the Picasso.
That's really crazy.
It's fucked up, but that's the way the world works. And, you know, it makes me cry, but here we are.
Let's not end there.
But you know what? You got to just do it. You do the art because you fucking love it. And you do the art because that's what art and entertainment are and entertainment is a commoditized medium, but art is expression, and you can't entertain without having some art in it. Like if you're just soulless, like there's no entertainment from the art you find at IKEA.
When you have you ever seen a few Billies stuck together with nice lighting? They look really nice. Billy bookcases. Anybody? Okay. Completing development of Borderlands. What'd you do?
It was the lighting that made it art.
Did you celebrate? Did you sleep for a month? Drink?
I drank a lot of Red Bull that night. I remember when we went in gold, or when we.
There's several moments, right? There's gold, release to manufacturing, launch party. We did a launch party. Then there's like we do the midnight showing where we go and like people are gonna buy it. They're waiting in line at GameStop, and you go meet them and sign copies, and you buy your own copy of the game. And then there's like a month later when it actually hits you that you didn't fuck it all up.
When did you feel like it was something special? Was it before release or after?
When Martin at the Academy called me and asked me to do a talk at the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences annual summit, I'm like, okay, that never they don't call you, right? Everybody so that's interesting. So I did the talk, and then I remember like I was up on stage saying like, I don't know, I think it feels like this game is going to be like a 3 million unit seller. I think it feels like that's the truth. It's crazy, right? Like,
when did you know, Mikey, that it was something special?
So definitely I had this idea in my head through all three Brothers in Arms games that I worked on, that someone was going to tattoo one of these beautiful lines, one of these poetic nothings that Matt Baker elicits to the universe. Like, I figured somebody would tattoo that. And then the first game tattoo I ever saw that someone took a line I wrote was Claptrap from the Zombie Island of Dr. Ned. And he pulls up a sleeve and it says, "I pooped where you're standing." And it's Claptrap from the beginning of that game. And I was like, oh, that's that. Because like you think somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, this line you wrote moved me to tears," and I pooped
where you're standing.
No, yeah. I pooped where you're standing, and I was like, "Oh, I get it. Oh, I get it."
That's a tattoo. That's not coming off.
That guy's going to be 80 explaining that to his great grandkids.
He's committed.
There was a DLC in 2009 for this game.
It was before the Water Wars.
It's not technically in canon, but who could tell anyway?
They were called videoed games. God. So that's when you knew it was special. When did you know it was huge?
Borderlands 2.
Yeah.
Was it just seeing the fans come in droves, or was there
it happened a lot faster on 2 than 1, because 1 is like a tail that just goes sideways forever, and then 2 felt like a hit.
2 is a spike.
Yeah.
That was an impact. That was like a meteor impact when 2 hit, and that was like, okay, and that's when I got like, okay, I got to get serious here.
When did you know there had to be a 2?
The second after 1 shipped.
Right.
Yeah, like so, like as 1 shipping, we're onto this. So like we were already working on the first. There was no DLC plan when we were making 1. We turned around Zombie Island to Dr. Ned in like 45 days.
Wow.
Like we just swarmed the shit out of that.
How did the release of Borderlands 1 immediately change Gearbox, or did it?
Yeah, I mean, we leveled up a lot. From my point of view, strategically, I kind of did the same thing I did with when we had Brothers in Arms, where I'm like, okay, except the thing I did differently with Brothers in Arms, we basically abandoned it because we can only do one thing at a time. So we abandoned it in order to focus on the new thing of Borderlands. So the thing we did differently was, okay, no, we're going to double down on this thing that works, but simultaneously we're going to get other boats in the water. And that's like things like Battleborn happened, but also things that are coming. I wanted to get more boats in the water and figure out how to scale the creative engine. So a lot of energy between 2 and 3 went about, okay, how do we scale our creative engine? But of course 3 has to be bigger than 2. So that took a while.
Did opportunities start coming your way as opposed to you going out and finding them?
It's always been the case. There's always been inbound and, us out there. It's just, the credibility gets higher with each. I don't know how many original IPs we have to create that become blockbusters, but apparently when you do more of them, the credibility grows and people trust you more. So,
Mikey, I know that you have done the convention circuit for years for all of your Borderlands related projects, but also your own projects. Have you had any interactions with people that had a particular connection to Borderlands?
Oh God, hundreds. I actually probably thousands if I were to guess. Like, that's Borderlands always felt like something special when you go out and you meet the people dressing up like the characters and you hear their stories. And I don't know. I've always found like Borderlands to be a game about finding people that are, pushing against the world in their own way.
Did you actually marry 2 Borderlands fans?
I did with Chris Straub live on stage at a Gearbox panel at PAX Prime, Randy, do you remember?
Yeah, we were on the main stage. It was one of the I think it was PAX Prime. Yeah, we were on the main stage, and Mikey was the minister. That was beautiful.
Were you already ordained?
I think later they asked me to sign their baby.
Not too long ago.
I signed their baby later.
And they tattooed your signature on the baby.
God, I hope not.
Mikey, were you already ordained, or did you have to like rapidly go onto a website? Or
he's an ordained minister of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Hey, are you ordained? And I was like, not that I know of. And he's like, would you like to be? Would you like to marry two people at a panel? And I was like, sure. And it was great. It was electric. It was so fun. I just saw them the other day. Michael just retired from the Navy.
Wow. And they're still married?
They are still married.
Borderlands is forever. It makes the love grow.
And they're not the only ones. It's crazy. It's crazy how many friendships were made and relationships built.
It's clear the two of you have had a great deal of impact, especially on this first Borderlands game. But how do you feel like, what's one thing that you feel like you put your personal stamp on Borderlands? Was it a bit of dialogue, one character? Like, Mikey, was it Tannis?
Yeah, I mean, it is Tannis, but I do kind of have to go back to Jesus Christ Titty Cinnamon. I'm going to be wearing that W for the rest of my life. I did that in a game.
Yeah. I think for me, it's the literal stamp. Just designing and drawing that icon with the vault icon.
Oh, yeah. That was you.
Yeah. I have a process where I just get on a whiteboard and just start scribbling, doodling, and pretty much done all the icons and for all the Gearbox games. And
what about this one? Gearbox logo.
Yeah. I mean, Martel and I worked on that a lot, but yeah. That one, it's weird. And that, like, speaking of tattoos, it's still like when I was planning, I was like, okay, I want it simple enough where someone could like carve it into a bathroom stall or a desk at school or something. The idea of someone tattooing it on their body actually makes me like a little uncomfortable because that's not coming off. But
it can be covered up,
I guess. But a lot of people have done it. It's pretty wild. A literal stamp.
We're gonna wrap up with just a couple of bits of Borderlands trivia. And see, you guys have already covered most of the trivia questions as things that you absolutely know. You've left me with two. Number one, and I know you know this, so I'm going to ask Mikey. The in credits scene. What is the song that plays over the in credits of Borderlands 1?
Champion?
No
Heaven by DJ Champion.
That's right.
He's got it. Borderlands has received.
By the way, you know what happened there? So it was Martel and I were at a DICE event, and the talent they got was DJ Champion, and he had 6 guys with axes like in a row at the party, just playing fucking rock guitar with as he was DJing to it. And it was like, this is the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I kind of went back and looked at more of his stuff, and that's when we found No Heaven.
That's awesome.
And Mikey cut the shit out of that with some of the trailer stuff we did. Like,
hell yeah, that was the first real game trailer I ever did. Was the DJ Champion one.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, that song is stuck in my head forever.
Yeah.
Borderlands has been awarded a Guinness Book of World Records record for most guns in a video game. Do you know what the number on the official certificate is?
16.7 million.
Okay.
I don't know.
17.75 million.
You were close.
You're very close. Without going
I was
over.
close.
You were very close.
If you had bet $1, Mikey would have won.
Yeah, I guess I guess the math had to be done to get the certification from Guinness.
This is a trivia item.
We beat that. By the way, we beat that record with Borderlands 2 and with Borderlands 3, but we don't have certificates for that.
They didn't re-award you.
I'm kind of frustrated.
I remember doing the Borderlands 3 trailer because you guys invited me back to do the launch trailer or the announcement trailer. Sorry. And I fought for the billions of guns thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Mikey, this is one that I feel like I'm just asking you for clarification on this trivia item. Many of the characters' names have particular significance. Roland, Mordecai, and Lilith are all Old Testament names.
That comes from Matt Armstrong, I think.
Yep.
From the original story. Because like Brick is sort of added in on top of that.
And Tannis is the city where the Ark is supposedly buried. So there's a lot of...
Yeah, we're just goofing around. Matt
Yeah.
liked that. And honestly, like if you ask him about it, he'd probably say like, yeah, I think people will like the goal is to have people try to imagine there's meaning there.
Right. They're also just good names,
Yeah,
too.
they're great
No
names,
matter how you
too.
look at it. And then there is a trivia item that other characters' names are based on the middle names of one of the writer's siblings. Which one of you is this?
I don't know. That's interesting. Could be true.
Yeah, I'm calling shenanigans on that one.
You know
I
that
think.
it could be a Simon Hurley thing, dude. Like frankly, which
It
I
is.
wouldn't be
It's
surprised. It could be a Simon Hurley thing.
The last thing I want to do is find out
He got some stuff. He got some stuff in there in his time with us.
between the two of you, and it sounds like you've already had this contest. Who does the best Marcus?
Randy.
I'm gonna offer
Randy.
this challenge.
Randy.
If
I
either
mean, we
of
could
you,
try it. Should we try it?
I'd like to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah.
So you want to hear a podcast in your best Marcus?
You want to go first?
All right. So you want to hear a podcast, eh?
Not bad.
Is
Not
that
bad.
okay?
Okay. So you want to hear a podcast, eh?
Oh, there's just a
See,
little
you're
bit more.
better at it.
There's a little bit more spit
You're-
in Randy's.
Randy's Watto is like Space Brain. I can't.
Lay's got a legendary Watto.
Have I got a podcast for you?
It's pitch perfect.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Thanks for joining us, Vault Hunters. If you have ears, please subscribe to the audio version of Echoes from the Borderlands wherever podcasts are available. If you are lucky enough to have eyes, any eyes at all, they don't have to be yours, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/gearboxofficial to see future episodes. If you play video games and you'd like to get every current Borderlands game at one great price, go snag our new bundle, the Borderlands Collection, Pandora's Box, available now on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. Huge thanks to my guests, Randy Pitchford and Mikey Newman, as well as our behind-the-scenes heroes, April Johnson, Dakota Warren, Matthew Ward, Rob Fernandez, and Hannah Terry. Our theme song is Get Out of My Head by Wandermind. For Echoes from the Borderlands, I'm Joel Watson. See you next time, Vault Hunters.